This is Barbara Reese reporting for Totally East Brunswick. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest with us in studio today, Judge Robyn K. Brown from our very own municipal court here in East Brunswick. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So for a lot of folks, we see the municipal court building, and we don't really know what's going on. Now, actually, a welcome is due. We thank you for joining us and welcoming you to East Brunswick. Now, it's been since December, am I correct that you joined us?
January 7th was my first day on the bench.
So welcome to East Brunswick.
Thank you.
But you're a resident in East Brunswick.
I am, for a little over 2 years now.
And how do you like it here?
We love it. I have 2 small children, my husband. It was an easy decision when we were deciding where to move, so we're happy.
So, Robyn, tell us a little bit of how you became involved in the law.
Okay, I grew up in Union County in Plainfield. I went to Bishop R. High School, and then I went to Hampton University in Virginia. And while I was there, I started getting an interest in the law. At first, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And then the more and more I thought about it, I said, well, you know what? I have a little bit of an interest in the law, so let me go to law school, because then I could always go back and be a teacher, but I may not always have the passion or the desire to go to law school. So while I was in law school, I wasn't exactly sure of what type of law I wanted to focus on. So I took classes in all different types of things. I went to Rutgers in Newark, and I happened to come across a program that was a study abroad program. So I spent this summer about 2.5 months in South Africa. And when I was there, it was 5 years after apartheid had ended. And I just learned so much, and that's when I really decided, like, criminal law was what I wanted to focus on. So that helped me make the decision. So after law school, I clerked for a judge in Essex County, and then I joined the prosecutor's office.
And during your time in South Africa, was it in a law internship?
Yeah, I went with Howard Law School actually sponsored the program. So if my memory serves me, it was probably about 40 or 50 students who went. And we took comparative constitutional law classes. And it was just amazing to be out of the country, to see, you know, just how great it was to be in a democracy, and, you know, but also realize, you know, people are victims of crimes, people are accused of crimes, and that's really what piqued my interest in the criminal law setting.
And so then you returned back to the States?
I returned back to the States. I had 1 year of law school left, and that's when I really started focusing on criminal law, and then I joined, I clerked for a criminal judge. He was the presiding judge in Essex County at the time. Learned so much from him, and I got to interact with lawyers, prosecutors, defense attorneys, probation officers, and that's when I was like, this is the path I want to be on.
Well, it sounds like you took a world look at the law and came to that decision.
I did.
As a child, what were some of your interests?
Sports. I was big into sports. At Bishop R, I played soccer. I ran track. I liked art. So I had, you know, regular kid stuff, you know, but sports was my big thing growing up.
Now that you have 2 kids and you have the, you know, your full-time job, are there any hobbies that you retain now?
I have 2 little boys, and they wake up on level 10. So we are really full steam ahead, starting at about 7 o'clock in the morning. One of my little ones is involved in the East Brunswick Little League. So that's been really nice. My other son is younger, so I'm sure he'll find what he's interested in soon. But, you know, so we've been involved with the soccer program here in town, the baseball program here in town. So, I mean, the beauty of East Brunswick is there's so much to offer. So my hobbies have pretty much become what their hobbies are now.
Which happens to us all.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I guess growing up, you know, you tell us you grew up in Plainfield, you said?
I grew up in Plainfield. I went to Catholic school, and then I went to Bishop R High School. So actually, that's only about a half hour or so away from here. So because I went to Catholic school, I had friends growing up who lived around here. So I was familiar with East Brunswick growing up.
Tell us a little bit about some of the things that happen at the municipal court.
Well, what's most popular is traffic offenses. So we deal with, you know, speeding tickets, driving while intoxicated, running red lights, unsafe driving. That's the most popular things that people know of. Some of the less popular things, we deal with neighborhood disputes, violations of local ordinances, meaning if your dog's too noisy, if you've cut down trees and you didn't have permission, things of that nature. Every now and again we get some weights and measures, vehicles on the turnpike, and they weigh more than they're supposed to. So those are the less common things, but we see a bunch of different stuff.
Now, so let's say we're taking a tour of it, because we know the third graders probably know more than a lot of the adults in town. They get a special tour.
They do, they do.
What's involved in the tour?
I know they come to the municipal complex. I think I'm usually one of their last stops, the court. They come inside. They are so excited, and it's actually refreshing for me to see them when they're coming in all eager. We usually like to have them see, we do what's called video court. So if there's individuals who are incarcerated, we have a screen next to the bench, so they really get a kick out of that because they're so interested. Well, who are those people? How come they're not here? What are they accused of doing? They get to see me interact with attorneys, and then they get to see me interact with just individuals from the community. After that, I'll usually take a break, ask everyone in court to be patient. And I like to do a little question and answer session with the third graders, and they have some pretty funny questions.
Now, I was there for one of those visits. My son was in the fourth visit, and they asked some insightful questions.
They do. They definitely ask some third grader questions like, how big is your house, or how old are you? But they do ask some very insightful questions. What happens if someone doesn't speak English? What happens if they say that they didn't do it? So then I explain to them about what your rights are, and that you have the right to go to trial, and you have the right to an attorney. And they're really interested, which I was surprised early on that at the third grade age they'd be that interested in local government.
So what's the hope by having these kind of tours, that the message that you're trying to send to these kids?
I think just to learn about their community, about government, about respecting authority, giving them an insight that, a police officer's role within the community. Sometimes I think nowadays everything's based on what you see on television. So, some young people have the idea, oh, it's just the police and they're out to get me, or, so I think it's really a good opportunity for them to see this is, what happens in the police department. This is what happens in the courts. They have the opportunity to go to the mayor's office. I mean, most adults in the community don't get those opportunities to see that. So I think it is good to experience, have them experience early on just about their local government, where to go, how it's run.
And you yourself are probably an inspiration to a lot of the students as a judge, achieving so much academically and having an important position in the community. Maybe that's something they could do as well.
They do. A lot of times, I would say pretty much every visit I get, someone asks, how did you become a judge? Or, did you go to school? What kind of school did you go to? So they're definitely interested. A lot of them have attorneys in their family, so they'll tell me about their moms or their grandfathers, or a couple of them have had judges in their family. So, but they're definitely interested about how they get to become an attorney, how they get to become a judge.
So now, taking it from the general public standpoint, let's say I've never been to the municipal court. What are some of the functions, let's say, that you take care of in the administration area? I know there are a lot of fines, things. Where does all that money go? How is it handled?
I don't really get too much into that, because like the business part of the office deals with that. Our court administrator probably knows more about that, to tell you the truth. But we just go off, there's, the fines that are assessed, and it all depends on what you're charged with. It depends on any prior violations that you may have had. So there's discretion to a certain degree, but there's set parameters on how to make those decisions.
And let's say someone comes to you, it's their first offense. Do you have the ability to decide whether to be lenient in some areas? How does that all work?
What I'll do is take into consideration what the person's charged with, what their background is. We have in court, you have the opportunity, I tell them at the beginning of every session, you can plead guilty, not guilty, or guilty with an explanation. So in that explanation, that also helps me to determine, okay, how should this person be treated? Sometimes you may have done something wrong and you're admitting to it, but there may have been a reason behind it. So all that's taken into consideration.
And sometimes they come with a relative, a father or mother. And
we have people will come with private attorneys or court-appointed attorneys. People come with relatives. Oftentimes, younger individuals charged with an offense will come with their parents. I like when that happens. It gives me the opportunity to speak to the parents, and I like to have the young person who's before me take an opportunity to speak to their parents directly, because sometimes that doesn't get to happen in every home. People are busy, you know, life gets in the way.
So now, if we go over, you know, the website is wonderful that you have at eastbrunswick.org under the municipal court section, and there's a part that says who we are and what we do, and it really is a good guideline for folks who are interested to learn more about the municipal court. And some of the things mentioned is violations of municipal ordinances, and you touched upon that before. So what are some of the areas you might cover with that?
There's a whole code of like a whole bunch of municipal ordinances. Like I was saying, you know, it's down from if your dog is barking too loud, or you know, you have to basically have permission to build certain things, or so we don't always deal with, you know, criminal offenses. There are local ordinances, which are, you know, just our local town laws that we deal with also.
So people don't have to take it in if they're take it into their own hands if they're not getting along with their neighbor per se. There is a venue for this.
Correct, because people have the opportunity to then come down to the court or to the police department and just file a citizen complaint.
And there's a process for it.
Correct.
Okay, and then of course the disorderly persons offenses, and I was interested in violation of the fish and game laws.
Yeah, you know, we don't see that one very often, and I can say I've only been on the bench since January, and so far I haven't had one yet. But that does fall under the purview of the municipal court.
Okay, and also I see conducting, like we said, community disputes resolution. How would that work?
That's something where we'll try to send people to mediation. So to give them the opportunity to meet with an independent mediator and try to work out their differences on their own without the court getting involved and saying, you know, you're right, you're wrong. We let them discuss it among themselves and try to come up with a resolution.
Okay.
So what will happen is, in those situations, the two parties will come to court. I'll say, you know, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go to mediation. They'll meet with an independent mediator, see if they can work it out. Most of the times they do, and then the official charges will be dismissed because they've come up with a resolution on their own.
So there's a preference, rather than having to go to court, that if it can be solved by a mediator, it's preferred?
In some situations, yes.
So that's it. And I understand now that when you came in, there used to be 3 part-time judges.
There was.
And now there's yourself and another part-time judge?
Yes, Judge Paul Endler. He's still here.
And how is that new system working?
It's working well. It's good. If there's times when I can't be there, or there's cases that he's previously handled that he's still vested in, he's able to, you know, see them to their conclusion. So it's working out well.
Good, good. So there's either yourself or another. People know who to look for.
Yes. Every now and again, we'll have to have a guest judge if for just some reason Judge Endler and I can't be there. But usually there's pretty consistent going on.
Absolutely. Now, previous to your coming here to East Brunswick, you had many years of experience as an assistant prosecutor.
Yes.
In several counties. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I started my career in Essex County. I was a prosecutor there for about 4 years. And then I was a prosecutor at the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office for about a little over 8 years. So, and at one point in time, I was actually assigned to be in the prosecutor's office. You're broken up by town, so I was the East Brunswick prosecutor for a little while.
And now you see a variety of cases in that position. Are there any cases that come to mind as the most interesting or unusual?
I've had some good ones over the years, you know, aggravated assaults, things that I don't see anymore here in municipal court. But, you know, you have your aggravated assaults. The TD Bank on Route 18 in the mall that used to be Commerce Bank, that got, there was a robbery that took place there once. I was the prosecutor for that. And
did you feel a sense of, I guess, accomplishment that you're bringing to justice and in many cases, these criminal cases?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I finished my career at the prosecutor's office doing what's called drug court. So the last 3 years I was there, I was the head of the drug court program. And that was very rewarding. And then sometimes I still see some of my old defendants now in my new position who for one reason or another, are in municipal court. So I see some friendly faces, familiar faces.
That makes sense. And for those of us who are not familiar, what does drug court entail?
Drug court is a diversionary sentencing program where you have to be found legally eligible and clinically eligible. So I used to make the legal decisions. And if you're found eligible, then instead of going to a state prison sentence, you are sentenced to what's called drug court, where you'll get different types of rehabilitation. You're on drug court for 5 years, and it goes through 4 different phases. It starts off very strict, where you're going to court weekly, you're going to see your probation officer weekly. There's random drug testing, there's home visits, there's a curfew, and then the longer you're in the program, it gets more and more relaxed. If you don't successfully complete the program, unfortunately, then you're sentenced to whatever your state prison sentence was.
So sort of a second chance program.
Yes.
Oh. So then, and how's been the transition from that to being a municipal judge?
The transition's coming along. Municipal court is much more fast-paced. That was the biggest challenge. As a prosecutor, you have a caseload, but a day you may have 5-10 cases on an average day. Some days obviously are much more, but here we can have anywhere between, I'd say, 70 and 100 cases a day. Wow. So the pace goes much faster.
Any tricks to keeping tabs on all those cases?
Some of them stand out. The ones who take a little bit longer to resolve, you start to remember, you get familiar with either the people who are coming to court or their attorneys. But usually the turnover is pretty quick.
Now, you have an office that works with you here at the municipal court?
Yes, there's a whole staff of just amazing people. There's the court administrator, the deputies, the violations clerk. So without them, you know, it's always the people behind the scenes who keep things running. So
absolutely, absolutely. And they help you to keep the court moving because, like you said, you have so many cases.
Right.
What's the pace like?
I'm pretty much just at the end of the line. So when I get it, they've already done all the hard work. So all of the clerks, like I say, the deputies, the court administrator, they really handle everything from paperwork to scheduling, scheduling of people coming to court, officers' schedule. So they set everything up for me. So when I get out on the bench, I just open up the file and I have what I need.
You have all your documentation in hand. Now, again, let's go back because education is a big goal of why we have these kind of shows. If a kid is looking into the law, what's some of your advice to them starting out? Let's say they're in East Brunswick High School and they're thinking, I might like to pursue a career in the law. What are some of their options, some of their avenues?
Well, after they go to 4 years of high school, then they'll go to college and then start applying for law school. If you go, they can go part-time or full-time. The thing with law school is you don't necessarily have to pick like a major in law school per se. You go, you take different classes and different types of law until you ultimately decide what interests you and what part of the law you want to go into. My suggestion to anyone who wants to go into law school is really think in your heart what interests you, because no matter what it is, the law affects it in some way. So that's my advice. If you're interested in sports, you may become an entertainment lawyer or a sports agent or things of that nature. So I would say for anyone who's young and wanting to, they think ultimately they want to become a lawyer, think about what interests they have and gear towards that part of the law.
So you can kind of merge your hobbies, your interests with the law.
Yeah, we spend so much time working, you might as well have fun doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, we've talked about a lot of different areas. Let's go back to the area about which you see the most of, which are the speeding and the car-related offenses. And I was reading that if you plead not guilty, that you make a special appointment. Why is that a special thing? If you come in and you plead guilty, it's quicker than if you plead not guilty? How does that work?
Only because if you're pleading not guilty, that means that you are going to have a trial. So because the court sessions are so busy, we can't just stop in the middle of a session to do an entire trial, and I really want to be able to give who's ever, you know, there for a trial 100% of my attention. So we also have to make sure the officers are available. The officers have rotating shifts, so the individual may be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, but the officer doesn't come on duty until 8, 9 o'clock at night. So that's why when you come in, if you plead not guilty, I advise you of what your rights are, and then we'll reschedule it so that you can come in and have a special time designated just for your trial.
And for those who are watching and, you know, maybe have sped in the past or have been pulled over for various reasons, to look at the court as it's not out to get you kind of thing.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, I hope people don't have that opinion. I mean, you know, in any town, there's laws. If you are accused of breaking the law, then there's a whole system set in place, which is why at the beginning of every court session, we let people know from the beginning, you know, that's your 3 options. Just because you're coming to court doesn't mean you've done something wrong. You know, you have the opportunity to explain to the court either, yes, I am guilty, or you can maintain your innocence and say, no, I'm not guilty. And that's when we have a trial.
And there's opportunity for you to speak on your behalf.
Right. If a person, even if when a person's pleading guilty, I'll ask them, you know, is there anything that you'd like to say to the court? Sometimes people just want to get stuff off their chest. Sometimes people want to explain to me what was going on in their life that day. It's amazing the stories that I hear of just what led a person to, you know, that very point in time when they came into contact with an officer.
And you see sometimes they defend themselves. Are there a lot of attorneys as well that come to court?
It's a mixture. We have private attorneys who come in. Some people take the opportunity to have a court-appointed attorney, which is a public defender, and then some people just waive their right to counsel and they'll represent themselves. And in the beginning, when I do my opening statement, I explain to everyone who's in court today that those are the options that they have. If a person comes to court and they want to hire a private attorney, but they haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, because pretty much the court dates come rather quickly, then I'll give them that opportunity so that they can go and hire a private attorney.
And is there anything you would like the public to know about the municipal court that maybe they don't know about because it's not something they come into contact on a daily basis? I
think just, you know, I'm hoping that the community has it, like we touched on, the community understands that the court is not there to hurt anyone. My goal is to understand that people, trust me, would rather be 10 million other places than sitting in court staring at me, listening to me talk. So, I mean, you know, I try really hard to treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of what you're accused of doing. You're a human being. So I try to treat the public like I want them to treat me. And I would say 99% of the people do. So.
And we saw when we came to visit, you were wearing the gown.
Yes.
Is that how it's called?
The kids love that. They call it a robe.
A robe.
Just a black robe.
And the gavel was fascinating to
they
them
love
as
that.
well. You explain you don't use the gavel that very much.
No, that you usually see that on TV. I feel like if I have to use my gavel, I have lost all control. So I think it's just kind of there for show.
More ceremonial.
Right. Right.
And for those that are not familiar, the actual court is the municipal chambers where we usually have the city council meetings.
Yes.
And then I guess where you're sitting is where the council usually sits.
Yes, that's where they sit. So they just change out our name tags really quick, but that's where court's held.
So it's a familiar location.
Yes.
You know, some people build.
Yeah, I would say people who see it, they probably have seen the courtroom on TV a million times and not realize that that's where court sessions take place. We use the same room.
So it's something where they actually have seen on TV many times.
Yes. Yes.
Any advice to people that may have an item before you, how to approach the court and how to approach their court date in a way that will help their case?
No, I think, again, it just really all boils down to respect. Like I say, I'm sure Judge Endler's the same way. We just like to treat everyone who comes in there as human beings who deserve respect, and the court expects that in return. You know, just be upfront with the court, especially now with the summer coming. This week I heard a bunch of people who had to come back for various reasons. Oh, but what do I do? I'm on vacation this day. And I'm not trying to ruin anyone's vacation, you know, but the best thing is just be upfront with the court, because if you get noticed to come to court and you don't show up, then there's a problem. Had you told me you weren't available, we could have, you know, addressed it. So.
Any advice, I guess, for summer visitors to East Brunswick? And, you know, summer is a busy time on the roads.
It is.
And people are getting their licenses. Kids, high school seniors are getting their licenses for the very first time. Any friendly advice from the judge for them? I would say friendly advice is be careful, especially in the area of Route 18 where it's a lot of congestion. You have people on the road, families on the road. So it's really just, you know,
be late. Don't hurt someone. Just take your time. And I tell people all the time, hopefully, maybe if I bump into you in the grocery store, that's fine, but I hope I don't have to see you in court again. So I say, especially with the summer coming, everyone, just be careful.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
We've learned a lot.
Thank you.
This is Barbara Reese reporting for Total East Brunswick.